I grew up in a small town in south of Russia, and I was a professor at a small local college. But I had big dreams that maybe one day I will collaborate with foreign scholars, and maybe I would become an international star. And maybe I would come here and perform this story. So one day in the year of 2003, I ran into my older colleague, Yuri, who introduced me to the very first American I've ever met. Yuri said, "This is Will. He's from Northwestern University, Chicago. Will and I co-authored an article together about paternalistic theory." And I said, "Oh, that's my favorite theory." And I asked Will, "How long are you in town for?" Will said, "Just for a day. I actually didn't supposed to come here because my visa registration didn't allow me to travel outside Moscow, so I'm trying not to attract too much attention." And I thought, I wonder if all Americans are as absent-minded as this one. Because Will apparently didn't know what not attracting attention meant. He was dressed in sport shoes, blue jeans, and a red t-shirt, while everybody else on the campus was wearing dark suits and pointed shoes. Also, Will was carrying a backpack, and nobody older than 12 years old carried a backpack in our town. Actually, you could spot Will if you looked down from out of space at our region. And my colleague Yuri said, "Will is going to stay at my place tonight. Why don't you join us for a dinner?" So we jumped into my old car and drove to his place. His wife was not at home, so Yuri's daughter, Marina, welcomed us, and she quickly served us dinner in the living room and closed the door, and we started having a nice conversation. But a little bit later, Marina opened slightly the door and said, "Dad, can I see you for a moment?" And Yuri left the room. Will kept talking to me, but I couldn't hear a word of what he was saying, because never before in our part of the world a daughter interrupted her father while he was talking about paternalistic theory to his guests. So when Yuri came back, I asked him what happened. He said, "Nothing, just a police officer knocked at the wrong door." Not that I didn't believe him, but I couldn't help worrying, so I said, "I'll go out and check my car." So I got out, and it was already dark outside, and when approaching the parking lot, I saw a man with a flashlight looking through the window inside my car. He was dressed in a nice suit, so I assumed he was not a criminal trying to steal my old car. And I stopped at a distance. I said, "That's my car." And the man looked at me, and he didn't seem scared or angry that I interrupted him. And I knew who he was. He was a KGB agent. He said, "Come with me," and he brought me to a playground behind the apartment building. And I found myself surrounded by 5 men in plain clothes, apparently KGB agents, a man in a police uniform, and 3 men in military uniform. So the KGB who brought me there ran toward one of the military men and whispered into his ear. And by their weird subordination, I guessed who these military men were. They were GRU agents, which is Russian military counterintelligence. GRU is the most secretive and the most horrible agency in Russia. It originated during Stalin's time and used to be called SMERSH, which is abbreviation for Death to Foreign Intelligence. This was the first time I saw GRU in flesh, but I heard that they were torturing their suspects by electrocution. So So these 3 GRU agents were like wolves, and the 5 KGB agents were like jackals, and the police officer was like a dog. I'm not sure who I was, but I instinctively moved closer to the police officer. And I thought, I will not survive electric torture. I'm even afraid of tickling. So then the GRU, whom the KGB whispered in the ear, turned toward me and called me by my name. He said, "Are you Sufian Zhemukhov?" I guessed that they tracked my name by my car plate number, and that scared me even more, and I only could nod my head. Then the GRU said, "Are you with the man with backpack?" I nodded again. And then he said, "Are you in the apartment 246? And I thought they know everything, which means they are not going to torture me for information. So I felt a little bit relieved and managed to breathe out my first word. I said, "Yes." And then the GRU agent turned toward the police officer next to me and said, "And you told us that he wasn't there." And this time it was the police officer's turn to forget all the words. Then the GRU said, "Go there again and check his registration." And the officer left. And I found myself standing like a lonely lamb among wolves and jackals. I thought, why is this happening to me? I just wanted to research paternalistic theory. And then I asked hopefully, "Can I go?" And the GRU said, "Yes, we'll find you if we'll need you." And on that happy note, I followed the police officer. Back in the apartment, the officer checked Will's registration. And Yuri took me to the other room, and then Will joined us as well. And Yuri said, "I got rid of that police officer, and you brought him back." I said, "You got rid of that officer, but you didn't get rid of 3 GRU and 5 KGB agents." And I briefly told them what happened outside at the playground. And then we went back to the police officer, and Will said, "Officer, could you please explain why am I under Russian intelligence's surveillance?" And the officer said, "Well, every foreigner is in Russia." And then Yuri said, what they are going to do, what GRU is going to do with Will. And the officer said, "Nothing. They wouldn't go after an American and cause international scandal." And as he was leaving, I said, "What about me?" The officer looked at me and said, "What about you?" I said, "I've seen their faces." And the officer said, "Please, you are a nobody to be of interest to GRU." And that was the only time when I was glad to be a nobody.